Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is.
Pat O.
And also,
Heather Moser.
oh my God, we have Heather back again. Heather, you're now catching up to I think Tobias Whalen's our most.
Oh, he's way in advance. But yeah, I would like to see that. I would like to see that competition get closer. And it is a competition between you two. Don't think I know it isn't.
All right. Bring it, Tobias. Let's go.
Yeah, he's been on the show like 5 times or something like that.
Almost. When he hits 5 times, he gets a satin jacket for the 5 Timers Club.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think he's at 3 or 4. I'd have to check my notes.
All right.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because I was just saying we're gonna talk about our weekends, and you were there for both of our weekends, so
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
great. So, Pat O, how was your weekend?
It was great. It was Monster Fest. Beautiful downtown Canton, Ohio. What can be said? It was an amazing time. We had a great time. It was a beautiful little city. It was like a college town. Kind of looked like when you first walk into Disney, and it's like old timey America. Some of the storefronts, like it had like a very surreal quality to it. Um, you know, lots of accessible street parking, lots of one-way streets. It was a great little town, and the convention itself was wonderful as well.
What was your favorite part about the convention?
My favorite part about the convention was seeing all of the people that I only know from social media.
Yeah.
That never ceased. And I've been meeting people off the internet for a long time, and it never ceases to amaze me. The once again, I hate to reuse this word so quick in a row, but how surreal it is, like, to meet Aaron Dees. And like I know it's kind of it seems goofy to us, but like, he's someone that's been on this show twice, right? He's been on the Y2K Movies podcast, so like all the Clubhouse stuff, interacted with the guy a lot over the past couple of years, but never actually like seen him in person.
Yeah.
And then to have him be like, "Hey man, you want a slice of pizza?" And it was just kind of like, whoa, like it's that guy from the internet. And there was a lot of that this weekend, and that's always interesting about these things, is meeting people who you've been friends with on social media for so long and interacted with too. Like, you know what I mean? Not just like social media friends, but like, like I said, we did podcasts together and stuff, or we do whatever, so that's always a trip.
Okay.
What about you? What was your favorite part?
Oh my God.
I know you met most of these. I don't know. Was there anyone here that you met for the first time?
There was. That's a good question. Actually, yes, and that is surprising to me because I've been to, a nice big old handful of these things now, and there's not a lot of people that I haven't met yet. But who haven't I met yet? Jeremiah Byron, of course.
Right.
I hadn't had the chance to meet him yet. That was a real special treat, and he's so. I love it because it's not my first time, and like he does the Van Meter Visitor, and he did Cryptid Con last year, but like this was like his first time, and you could like see it in his eyes. We took his innocence during Monster Fest weekend, and then it was just, I don't know, he was so excited, and that made me really excited, really, man, that really pushes the vibe up, just elevates us all. Gosh, who else have I not met? Mostly it was a lot of fans, actually. I'll be honest. I had more, we had more fans at this one than I think we've had ever, which was really cool. I think a lot of people really made it a point to attend this one, and I think that was smart because it was such a big event with a lot of really great people in the community. And if you were going to go to one, this is the one to go to. But I can't think of anybody else. I'm sure there's people. I'm just I'm so festivaled out right now. My brain is just not it's just not working. But no, it was fantastic. It was good to meet some of the people. There were some people. Oh, Shannon LeGros. Yeah, I'd never met her before. But we've talked and we've talked, and it's so weird how you know these people, but you don't know these people.
Mhm.
you know, and other people I've met, but I just haven't really had the chance to interact with much. Micah Hanks was one of them. We had met before, interacted more after that first meeting than we did when we met, and then obviously had a little bit, of a friendlier rapport with each other by that point in time. And then there were some people that I didn't get to talk to at all, and I'm sad about. But it was just there was a lot. There was a lot going on, and I just figure, hey, you know what? There's next time. So eventually, we'll be in the same room together. Heather, how was it for you?
It was awesome. Extremely tiring,
Yes.
but it was amazing. Um, it was my first time meeting Stan Gordon. That was one
Yeah.
of the firsts for me, which I was really excited about. He's been in some of our stuff, but I've never been around during those interviews, so I was excited to see him. And yeah, my favorite part of all of these things is meeting people, seeing friends that you only see at these events, giving hugs. um, yeah, and when you were talking about the energy like that Jeremiah brings, and like Aaron, I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times now and hanging out with him, and that
Mhm.
energy that Aaron has never goes away.
No,
Um,
it's amazing.
it is, yeah, it's amazing and it's inspiring. So I feel better whenever he's in the room, because he's just clearly a very happy person, very thankful that he is where he is, and it was wonderful to watch him this weekend, because it was his first time getting to sign his book,
Yeah.
and then he did so well that it sold out so quickly in the morning of Monster Fest, and everything was just surreal to him, and you
Yeah.
could see you could see the genuine um, gratitude on his face and just giddiness. um, so it was actually after Monster Fest, we went to dinner in downtown Canton. I can't recall. I don't even know if I ever knew the name of the place before we sat down, but I just followed the group. And Aaron was across the table from me, but on down. And he looked at me at one point and he kind of mouthed, "Is this real?" And I just held my hand up or my arm up and I pinched my arm and he pinched his arm and he smacked his face and he's like, "Yeah, it's real." I'm like, "Yeah, get used to it." This is coming for you, my friend, I'm sure.
I know nobody deserve. We all deserve it, but I feel like no one deserves it more than Aaron Dees.
Yeah.
Like he is genuine, just from the get go. Like I remember, I was in the very first clubhouse room with Aaron Dees. And back then he gets up there and he is so freaking excited. We're all like celebrities to him. Think about the biggest celebrity that you know. We are that to Aaron Dees.
Yeah, yeah.
And he gets up there in the clubhouse and we let him talk, and not like we're I mean, we're pretty lax about who we let talk in those rooms, but he just was endlessly grateful. He's like, "Oh my god, he's like, I cannot believe I'm up here. I follow all you guys, listen to all your shows, and oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." And
Mhm.
I remember at one point, just way early on, I sent him a message and I was just like, "Hey, listen, I just want to let you know that look, we're all people. We're not
Yeah.
anything special. We're just weirdos, and we happen to maybe we're a little bit more into the weird than some people are, but you're right there with us. You're not any different. You're all, guess what, you're also a researcher. He's like, "No, I just read books." I'm like, "That's most of what we all do."
Correct. Yep, exactly.
Like, you're already right there with us. And he was so grateful for it, and so I just kept, we've gotten a little personal about kind of those things. And so over the weekend I'm
Mhm.
just like, "Look, here you are,
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
what you did." And
absolutely.
he's so proud. I'm so heckin' proud. I feel like he's my baby. Like, I've watched him grow.
I
I know.
think.
Go ahead, Pat.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I think there's something to be said there about the infectious power of enthusiasm, and
Mhm.
how my uh my way of thinking has always been never stand in the way of enthusiasm. Everything else can be figured out. Everything else, is just it's the details. But somebody that genuinely wants to create, that wants to produce, that wants to be there, that wants to be the part of the conversation, they will always outshine anyone else, no matter how many hours they have logged or how long they've been doing something.
Mhm.
Enthusiasm always wins.
Mhm.
And I'm not taking anything away from the dude. He's got a lot of great attributes, but I've never seen anyone match his enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And I think that has a big part to do with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think he's a
absolutely.
great, for people that want to get into this type of field. I think, I think there needs to be a story for the Aaron D story, just because, again, a lot of us have watched him go from being an enthusiast of it all to now being a researcher and author, such and such and such such.
Mhm.
I think he's a great example of just do it and stick with it and get into it. And I tell people all the time. I mean, that was another great thing about just everybody in general. Like there was no bad blood between anyone. And when you're
Yeah.
not at a convention, when you're just online and you're just kind of doing your thing or whatever, you get so bogged down by all the negativity and all the fighting and all the drama. And
Oh,
man,
yeah.
there was none of that. you there was none of
Yeah.
that. Everybody just mingled so well. It didn't matter if I was telling Ann, I was like, hell, most of the people, and that maybe not most of the people, at least half the people have been on TV, and that didn't really matter. It doesn't matter to any of us because, at the end of the day, we're such a niche community that we don't really have a choice but to stick together. so,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
love that. It's great. So,
Yeah. I was really proud of the turnout and how well it went. I mean, it's not as if there weren't hiccups and things, but we tried to make sure that didn't, bog anybody down. And they weren't minor or they weren't major things that were an issue really, but little things like, there weren't enough chairs or they ran out of toilet paper
right.
twice in the bathrooms and we're trying to find that or our tech guy got let into the wrong area of the basement and got locked in a boiler room or something like early on and we had to get him locked, unlocked. And that's literally the response that I got when I went up to the front desk and I was like, okay, so our podcast guy or sound guy, um, it, he was let in the basement and he's locked in a boiler room and the lady at the front desk just lost it. She was like, okay, all right, this is a first, but we'll get him out. uh, and she
Wow.
got on the walkie-talkie and got that sorted. But yeah, it was awesome. And then to see the people came from all over, which
Yeah.
was awesome to hear. I know somebody came from Alaska, I believe
Mhm.
specifically for Shannon, actually, one of her patrons, I believe. There were people up from Alabama and Florida. This one woman, I remember her name was Peggy, came up from Florida with her On the Trail of Companion book because she wanted to get as many signatures in that book as possible.
Mhm.
And she's like, I brought this up from Florida. I'm like, okay, well, let's make sure we get everybody in it and um, there would be times where people would stop at the table and maybe they couldn't find Seth because we were all running around like crazy. And they just wanted his autograph. And so I would go track him down or track Eli down or whatever. I'm like, just stay here. I'll go get him. And so you
Yeah.
don't leave here without that. Cause I mean, that was sucked to come up from Florida and then not have everybody's
Right.
signature, when you come up to the Monster Fest and you don't get Seth Breedlove's signature and that's what you were really wanting, like that would suck. So you can't
I
let
know.
that
I
happen.
didn't. The only time I even got to talk to Seth at all, we were packing up, and and he stopped me, and he's like, "Hey, thanks for coming." I was like, "Hey, great to see you." And that's just how it was with some people. I didn't even get to talk to
Mhm.
Eli. I've never met Eli before, and I didn't even get to talk to him. And I feel bad, but I'm not good. There's other things.
Yeah,
my
yeah.
my one of my favorite memories of the weekend was Friday night. I was walking into the Canton Palace Theater, and there was a woman with her kid, and the kid was probably like tweens, and she was saying to her kid, "Okay, is that everybody? Did you meet everyone that you wanted to meet?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." And the mom goes, "All right, well, let's head back to the hotel and we'll see him at the convention tomorrow, and the kid had some kind of autograph book with him or something. And
Aw.
it just reminded me of, like, when I was younger and my mom would take me to the Fangoria Weekend of Horrors,
Yeah.
and she would stand in line with me for an hour so I could meet Reggie Bannister, and she'd have no fucking clue who he was, right? And she'd be like, I'd be like, "Mom, it's fucking Reggie from Phantom." My mom doesn't know who Phantom, and she'd be like, "Okay." And she'd meet there, and I'd go up and I'd talk to Reggie Bannister, and I'd shake his hand, and he'd sign my copy of Phantasm too. And then I'd go back, and she'd be like, "Are you happy now?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." Like, "All right, let's go back to the room. I'm tired." And it was I saw that moment, and I immediately identified all the players, and it was just
Mhm.
like, wow, like this is really cool for small town monsters that they have this kind of fan base, and wow, they're inspiring people. And like, I've been that kid before at horror conventions, like, I understand that. And I just thought that was a really cute moment. And I think it's cool that you guys occupy that space in people's lives. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Where that kid and obviously begged his mom and like probably did chores and did whatever got a good report card so that she would take him to this thing. She had no clue who the fuck any of you people were or what the hell
Mhm.
this was
Yeah.
about. Some Bigfoot shit, right? And but no, gonna make the kid happy. And
Right?
I just thought it was the not to be patronizing, but it was just the sweetest thing in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's so awesome that you guys do that. And I think that, there's value to this. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not just, oh, we're throwing a con to make a few bucks to get some people together and it's an excuse to see friends. Like, no, like
Mhm.
that was a real big moment in that kid's life. To see
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
documentary and then to meet you guys afterwards.
That
Yeah.
was at Canton Palace that night. That reminds me of so where our table was, it was near a staircase that went up to the balcony. And this was, I think it was before the movie. Shannon LeGros had been upstairs doing something, and then she started down the stairs to come back to our table. And I was away from the table, but I was facing the stairs. And there was a young man, a teenager, probably really, really early teens, with his mom. And he turned and he saw Shannon coming down the stairs, and he turned around really quickly and he looked at his mom and he did this thing with his eyes, like trying to point with his eyes. And his mom looked really confused, like, what? And he was like, I could see him. He was like, Mom, that's Shannon LeGros. And she was like, okay. And he was like, Mom. And he's like freaking out. And Shannon didn't notice any of this, of course, because he had his back to her. He didn't want to be seen, freaking out. And she went and stood over at the bottom of the stairs, and I went over to her. And I'm like, I just want you to know that little, that he wasn't little, he was taller than both of us. But I'm like, that guy over there, that kid, um, you need to at least go say hi to him if he doesn't come over here at some point, because he's freaking out about your presence. And he he eventually did come over, and was really, really nervous and awkward. But I thought it was just adorable, really.
Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah.
I saw him like trying to like, Mom, oh, Mom,
Yeah.
that's Shannon.
At one point I bought something from the little marketplace at the hotel. And so, you
Mhm.
take it up to the front desk, you buy it. And I'm there and there's a couple checking in and they're like, what's going on? And it just kind of hit me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There's just regular people here. And then there was like, oh, it's Monster Fest, and they're like, what's that? And they're like, oh, like Bigfoot and Mothman, and I mean, they were like, the staff there were like real pumped about it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was just chit chatting with them. I'm like, oh, you guys haven't checked it out? They're like, no, we want to, and they did later on. And then I also had talked to the bartender at one point, one of the bartenders, and she was just, she was giving us glowing praise. She's like, the whole group, everybody's been so polite.
Mhm.
And she said, really, honestly, we get all kinds of, conventions and things like that here. But this has been the best group. So they really liked us, and they enjoyed our
Yay.
presence. So that was nice. But
Mhm.
yeah, it dawned on me. And then later on that evening, there was a story floating around. I can't remember his name. I'd never met him before. He just showed up mostly for Shannon. But
Mhm.
he's a demonologist, I guess.
Mm.
And I walk up and he's chit chatting with Jake Dressel and his wife. And probably a lot of people don't know who Jake Dressel is, but that doesn't matter. I do. Jake's a great guy. His wife's amazing too. And they're like chit chatting. They're like, let me get your opinion on something. I'm like, okay. And they were like, if a man came up to you and said, "Hey, you look really fit," like, how would you take that? And I'm like, what? So they started from the beginning. The demonologist guy, who's like he's like a 40 to 60-year-old man, and he goes up to some guy outside and tells him, "Oh my God, you're really fit. Wow," And come to find out, the guy that was really fit he was talking to was Chad Michael Murray. And
Oh,
apparently he was
okay.
staying at that hotel.
What?
Yeah. I guess Chad Michael Murray is from Columbus, Ohio.
I
But
didn't know this.
yeah, me neither. So he was staying there.
You're really
Um,
fit.
what's that?
I said, "You're really fit." I can
Yeah,
just assume that. Yeah.
he's like, "Wow, you're really fit. What do you do?" He had no idea who he was. And we were like kind of cracking. We're like, "Oh my gosh, you got turned down by the guy from One Tree Hill." And um, Jake was like, "Tell him you can resurrect his career." he's a demonologist. Anyway,
Oh,
it was lots of fun, lots of interesting fun. So,
yeah.
but it was great, and I know that you guys don't have the answer yet, but I hope that you guys do it again. And
Yeah.
if you do, I'll be there. So
Okay. Yeah, I like you said, I don't have an answer for that, but yeah, I think it went well. Hopefully
yeah.
we learned things as we went.
Mhm.
And I think it'd be a blast to do it again, but we
Just
shall see.
having more stuff in Ohio, I think is really important. I think we need more. We're such a weird state. It's ridiculous how we don't really feed into that as much. But we're starting to. We did Frogman, and that's coming back.
Mhm.
There's, I guess, a paranormal convention, but they kind of, I don't know, they seem a little more close knit with their people, so they don't
Oh
really
yeah, the
have
one
to.
at Mansfield Reformatory.
Oh yeah, there's that one too. I
That's
forgot
that
about that one.
Parapsychon, I think is what they call that one. Parapsychon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that one. So I mean, I guess we're starting to get a couple now. Monster Fest was a good one. We're getting there. But I think we should have more. We're a weird state, and we should let our freak fat flag fly, like they
Yeah,
say. I guess So it
I
was good.
agree.
Any other thoughts on Monster Fest from anybody from the room?
I will say that I want to thank Lisa from Cryptid Comforts for saving me from Pennywise when he showed up.
Okay,
Um,
not a fan of clowns, huh?
because I hate clowns. I also hate mascots, like masks in general. So even
Oh
Lisa, I don't
yeah.
like when Lisa has the squonk outfit on because I can't see her face. And so when this person walked in with the mask of Pennywise on, and it wasn't just the painted face, that was like both things really bad for me at the same time. And as soon as I watched him walk in the door, I got up from the STM table and left and immediately went
Oh.
over to Lisa's, which was as far away as I could get in the ballroom. And I was back there talking with her, and I'm like, "Yeah, there's Pennywise just walked in." She's like, "Oh man, yeah, just stay here until you see where he is in the ballroom, or like when he comes in the ballroom." Most people would come into the STM table and then just go right in
Hmm.
through that door and then make the loop around and then walk back out past you guys and through
Right.
the out. But so that's why I went to Lisa first, because I thought I'll see him for coming in the ballroom. Yeah. Well, as I'm talking to her, that son of a gun had walked right past your guys' table and in that back door, right by where I was.
Oh no.
I saw the hair just quickly, and then Lisa like pushed me into a corner and stood in front of me. She's like, "Just
Oh.
don't move, don't move." And I'm like, "Okay, okay." And when he got by, she's like, "Okay, go, get out of here." Okay, good. I know it's a ridiculous thing, but I can't.
No,
There are certain things I cannot do, and that's one of them.
that was a particularly horrifying costume. I have to say, like, that was and it was interesting because there wasn't a lot of like cosplayers there. I feel
Mm-mm.
like at Frogman I saw a bunch of people in costumes, and maybe it's just my own perception, but like I didn't see as many people dressed up as you
No.
normally see at these things. But oh yeah, there was that guy, and he went all out, and it was really disturbing. And yeah, it was like in the middle of the fucking day, and you're like, I guess I mean, because he must do that at things, because that wasn't like something he threw on, right?
Right.
Like that was like a whole outfit. It was I don't even want to say it was screen accurate, but it was probably pretty damn close.
Yeah.
And I have
Yeah.
no idea what possessed him to do that in the middle of the day and then go to Monster Fest. But whatever, bro. Like,
He left
you
the
know,
house like that's just what he wears every day, and he just saw what was. He was like, "Oh, what's going on here? Let's just."
yeah. Well, you talked about the people that were at the hotel not for Monster Fest. Maybe that was one of them. You
Yeah.
know, someone just chilling in Canton. You know,
Oh.
His Pennywise costume. I agree with that. There wasn't a lot of people that were dressed up. I was surprised.
Mm-mm.
I
No.
was.
well,
I was
maybe it's a more
surprised.
mature audience or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I just wasn't. It was too fucking hot. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was really hot.
It was like 90 degrees outside. It was hot in the venue. You know,
Mhm.
which isn't anybody's fault. I mean, but it was just way too much for all that mess. So
I wasn't too hot in the venue, but the bathrooms definitely had a Park Fieldhouse feel to them, and I kind of enjoy that. It doesn't bother me too much, but I'm a boy. Like, we're disgusting by nature. Like, that was just kind of, it is what it is what it is. But
I was sitting there, I was fanning myself with the thing.
well,
Really
as someone that worked in hotel HVAC in the past, that when you think about it, they got those automatic doors right there that are just going to do
Mhm.
nothing but let out cold air and let in humid air all fucking day long. So
Yeah.
there really wasn't a whole lot they could do. They could pump cold air into the meeting room and hope that it like kind of trails out,
Yeah.
but that's just the weather and design. Poor lobby design. I ain't talking shit about the hotel. I'm just saying when you just have like automatic doors like that, that's why a lot of places when it gets hot out, they'll close the automatic doors and they'll use the revolving ones. I don't know if that had
Mhm.
revolving doors or not. So you were just
Yeah, it
losing
didn't.
AC the whole time. There's
Mhm.
nothing
Well,
they could have done.
the one I was talking to one guy outside, and you know, he was sad because he didn't say he was sad, but he was disappointed because he wanted to stay long enough to watch the On the Trail of UFOs, but didn't think that he would last that long because I guess specifically the movie room was like sweltering.
Hot. Yeah, that's what
Eh,
I heard
Yeah,
as
and
well.
so that I mean, as far those are the only complaints that I had heard all day was that it just was hot
Mhm.
in certain places.
Yeah.
But I sat in the podcasting room for a bit, which I would tell people, I'm like, hey, if you need to go decompress, that's a great place to do it. It's a smaller room, you know, with obviously a lot less people in it,
Mhm.
you know, and then you're just kind of hanging out. I didn't feel like it was hot in there or anything. But yeah, I guess the movie room was just like way out there. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't check any of that stuff out. People kept asking me where stuff was, and I was just over there. I had a vague understanding of the layout. I thought there something was downstairs. I heard at one point, so I
Yeah, the
was just
speakers.
yeah. I was like, I think there's stairs involved, and you go over in that direction, and good
Or
luck.
just,
Look for signs. Ask
yeah,
someone else.
yeah, just,
Well,
if
I
you just
can't
keep
say I
walking.
don't know. That would defeat my whole character. I have to just
Well,
kind of
like,
mumble some incoherent, non-committal shit, and
like
then send
when
them
we
on
were
their way.
setting up the night before, you know, and we kind of got in like just in time for us to set up and then me go straight to the movie premiere. There's like a
Mhm.
lady that walked up and she's like asking me all these questions about the event. She's like, well, what's the schedule like? What's this, that? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just here.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what possessed her to think that I had all the answers, but I did not. You know, so I hope she figured it out. That's all I got to
She's
say.
that the poor woman's still wandering around.
Right, trying to trying to figure it out. But what was funny, Heather, was you were saying that, you know, somebody got locked in the boiler room downstairs. So I heard, so Saturday night, you know, we all, you know, partied till the bar closed down the hotel. And then
Mhm.
everybody wanted to go to another bar afterwards.
Mhm.
And and I didn't. We left. I went to bed.
Yeah.
But they all went to the bar, and then after that, they all went back to the hotel. And I guess one of the hotel staff was telling the remaining group, they're like, well, hey, since you guys are, you know, those kind of people, our basement's haunted. Do you want to
What?
go? Yes. Do you want to go down there?
Oh,
So
for goodness sakes.
they took them all down into the basement. There was some girl. I have no idea if she attended the event. I don't know where she came from. She just happened to be in the bar afterwards at the hotel. But she kept
Yeah.
like she got into a huge fight with Lee from Creepy People and Cliff about
What?
yes, about there's not enough female representation within the paranormal. And I agree with what she's saying. However, the way that she was delivering it, she was extremely drunk, and it was just
Yeah.
not the time and place to have that discussion. And it was a whole hot mess. But she's also like, she was like, well, I'm a tarot card reader or whatever. So she like took her tarot cards down, and they all went down in the basement. She was like doing readings, and I don't think anything happened, but yeah. So it's
Yeah.
funny someone got locked down there because they were down there with the spirits. So
Well, yeah, that's interesting. The only thing I know about that hotel is that it used to be called the McKinley Grand Hotel. Um, so it was an older hotel that they redid for the DoubleTree or whatever. But they used to have my school's prom there every year. And it was one of those things that when you were younger, you were like, "Oh, I can't wait to go to prom at the McKinley Grand," because it was a big deal. It's a beautiful venue.
yeah.
And then when I got to my junior year and could attend prom, they moved it to some little crappy hotel down in New Philly. And they kept it there for my senior year too, because it was significantly cheaper for them to rent down there in New Philly. So I never got to actually step foot in there until this Monster Fest thing. But
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's haunted,
But
so maybe you want to go back. I don't know.
maybe, yeah, I'm interested. See, if Cliff got into an argument, I can't imagine that. I can only imagine that it had gotten carried away if Cliff was going to get involved in a discussion like that.
So I don't think it was more. I don't think Cliff was definitely. So I really wasn't there for a lot of it. Somebody at some point had called me over to her because she was like, "Oh, there's not enough women in the field," and they're like, "Well, here's one."
Here's a woman.
I know a woman. Yeah.
That's the best answer for that one. But here's one.
Yeah,
Look.
here's one.
Yeah.
And then she just started talking, and I was just at that point in time, I was already peopled out. Look, I was already way peopled out. I was already
Yeah.
way too drunk for the conversation. I saw Jeff from Strangeology. I saw him come walking down, and I pretended that he waved me over, and I was like, "Oh, hold on, I'll be right back." And I walked away. And just like I said, listen, I'll listen to her on another day. That was not the day. And
Yeah.
but I would kind of, because Anne was there, and she was kind of, Anne has daddy energy. She takes care of everybody. So she was kind of just like giving this girl a place to blow off steam. And
Mhm.
so Anne witnessed the conversation. She was sitting at the corner
Mm.
of the bar, and right at that corner of the bar was Cliff and Lee. Well, now Cliff was not being impolite or anything. He was just like, "Well, I disagree with what you're saying," probably because of the way she was saying it. And then Lee
Sure.
was kind of more of a dick. But either way,
Just for the record, I have no part in any of this story or conversation.
no.
Just want that noted. I
Yeah.
was perfectly fine to move past us Monday morning quarterbacking Monster Fest. I didn't fucking talk shit. I didn't name names.
No.
I didn't do any of this.
No.
This is
No.
100% her people.
It's not my people.
Put my mic up, activated my cough button now. Please continue.
No, I pretended that somebody called me over and I left. So so I don't even
Yeah.
fully know exactly what had happened, but they just kind of, I know like every time I would kind of come back, they were all still talking about it. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
I'm walking away. So I don't know. It was just, again,
Yeah.
poor girl. She meant well, but she was just, she was gone. I don't even
Yeah.
think she remembers that she had that
See,
conversation.
it would have been cool to be able to stay there afterwards, but like after we went to dinner, I was exhausted. And I still had to drive home. We had to go and load or unload really at Seth's house, all of the stuff.
Yeah.
And then I still had another hour to drive home. And I was just so tired, but seeing all the pictures and stuff, you guys shutting the bar down and things, I'm like, dang it. That
We
would have
did
been
have a
fun.
really good time. Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that I went, because I almost didn't, because
Mhm.
I was also very tired.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? No, damn it. Some of these people, who knows when I'm going to see them again? Maybe next year. I'm gonna, if there's people, I'm gonna go. And I was like, you know what? We'll just show up at the hotel bar, because that seems to be where everybody's staying. If there's people, we'll hang out. If not, I really wasn't expecting anybody to be there, and well, there was. So it was good though.
Getting back to that poor woman.
Oh
If there
God.
was only an anthology of female content creators that she could read to help her celebrate the contributions of women to this field. If only there was something that was coming out very soon that we
Oh,
could
that's
Yeah.
direct her
beautiful, Pat.
towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw, thank
Yeah.
you.
That is.
Yeah, there's something that, both Ashers and I are involved in that's coming out
Yes.
very
Yes.
soon.
That's coming
Are
out.
we allowed
What's
to
it
say that?
called?
It's called The Feminine Macabre Volume 5.
Volume 5. It's the really
Volume
pretty covered
5.
one. That's the one that you want to
Yeah,
buy. No, I like the other
the
covers
purple
too, but
one.
this one, yes, the purple one is
Yeah,
extra pretty. Actually, I believe it's out officially today.
June
Not
7th.
today, but today.
Oh, yes, right. I
Right.
see what you're doing there. It's out right now.
It's out right now and you can buy it
Mhm,
and read
mhm.
what all. Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about what you wrote about?
Uh, well, mine, it's called Satirical Synchronicities, but satirical spelled like satyr because it's about Goatman and how I can't get away from Goatman no matter what I try to do. It seems like
Wow.
it just keeps coming up in my life even before I was really into I've always been into the strange and weird, but before I was in this world completely, like as a classicist and things, Pan was always around and stories about satyrs and just the way that there's been these breadcrumbs for many years, even prior to getting into the cryptid community, that it's just a kind of an acknowledgement of that. Like, all right, I see this. And I use the word synchronicities because I'm trying to get back to not hating the term.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so I'm like, you know what? We're just going to lean all in on this. We're going to acknowledge that this Goatman thing doesn't go away and that everybody's using this freaking term. So I just went with that. So that's what mine's about. Goatman.
That's crazy that that you say that. Heather. You don't know this, but Pat and I both know this. Next week's episode's about Goatman. I'm not kidding.
What?
It is.
You
She ain't
see this
lying.
nonsense? I'm
Yeah.
telling you what.
She ain't lying.
Perfect timing.
It
Oh,
really is.
goodness.
I was kind of tossing it up because I was like, well, I want to do, I wanted to do the Bell Witch,
Yeah.
because I would like to do more paranormal topics on the show because we just don't have a lot. And I was like, well, let me ask Heather if she's up to do it because if we're gonna have anybody on for it, it's gonna be Heather. And then I was like, but I want to do Goatman too. So when do we, how do we? And we kind of flip flop the dates a lot. But yeah, that's next week's episode.
Nice. Very nice.
So, you guys might want to read up on it before that comes out.
There you go.
And because obviously Heather, it's very in real time. You saw it here, folks. It's happening. Mine's simpler than that. Mine's just about trauma and the paranormal and the tie between the two. About kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Everybody that I've talked to that has experienced high strangeness has experienced either some type of physical or mental trauma. And it's been consistent. That's like one of my questions on my questionnaire when I interview about your thing. Have you experienced any trauma? And some people are very forward with it. They're like, oh yeah, absolutely, and then they'll tell me all about it. Or they'll hide it for a minute, and then eventually they'll be like, you know what, actually, I do have some trauma. But I've had a case. I had one that didn't match up to that. They had a pretty, normal life. I know none of us really know anything about that, but it does happen.
I don't even know how to give my kids that.
Right. Yeah. It's out there. And then and then his situation got fucked up because he ended up experiencing, he may or may not have been abducted. There's definitely missing time and things like that involved. But then it did go on to greatly affect his life because what science says about trauma and the paranormal is that, well, guess what? People that experience trauma end up having fantasy prone personalities, which is a thing. That is a legitimate thing. Mental health is very much a legitimate thing. And you should be taking your prescribed medications and taking care of yourself and whatever it is you need to do. And I don't want to, I'm going to sound mean, but like, listen, yes, I talk to people that like are legitimately crazy and that, you get those in this community. It happens. But is it fair for science to just write it off completely because there are a couple of, I guess, bad eggs, because sometimes there are people that have delusions and hallucinations and things like that, does that mean that all paranormal isn't real? Why aren't they looking at it on the flip side? So what happens is that we, because our brains are rewritten due to trauma, that we are more susceptible to these instances. Does it matter? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But it's just a little slice of that. And so I think that's
Yeah, don't give it away, baby.
a fun concept. Oh, I'm not. Then there
You're
will
putting
be
it all on
more
the pool
of it.
table right now.
There will be more of it in the future. So, no worries there. Something I've studied a lot of. So
Not to go back to Monster Fest again. But
you
I
had
do
some
want to
trauma
say
at Monster Fest?
no. But I had two people. I had two very two. They weren't listeners yet. Maybe they are now. But two people kind of share experiences with me at the table,
Nice.
and sat there and talked with them for 5-10 minutes and just swapping scary stories, and it was really interesting. And there was one of the guys. It was the process of him deciding to tell me this story was very it was very evident. You could see him be like, "Oh, this is what you guys talk about. Oh, I have an interest in that." Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, we're talking about blah blah." And then you could see him like kind of a little bit, and then he's like, "Well, I had something happen to me once," and I was like, "Oh, let's hear it." And it was good, and I think it was good for him. And it was a very personal moment that I shared with some random stranger who I'll
Nice.
probably never talk to or see again. But it was, I think there's value in us talking about this stuff, even if it is fantasy prone, or even if it's a way of coping with something horrific that it did happen to us when we were 9 or whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a reason we do this show, and it's sometimes it's for laughs and shit, but sometimes it's therapeutic, and I think it's nice that we can kind of heal each other through talking
Mhm.
about goat men or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, as
Whatever.
silly as it sounds. Yeah, yeah.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I had one guy. It was a really awkward moment. He came up and, we're just kind of talking and I'm giving my spiel. It's hard for me to sell myself at these things. What do I start with? I have a podcast, or hey, I'm an investigator, or, hey, I'm writing a book, I'm making a documentary. Where do I start? Um, but anyway, so we start talking about Mothman, and not I didn't bring it up. He did. I don't remember why. And he was like, well, Mothman's not real. And I looked him dead in the face and I was like, oh, yes, he is, because I've seen it. And he felt so bad. Like, you could see it in his face. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was just joking.
Yeah, I was just joking.
I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I'm not. But he was nice. It ended up being a good interaction, but it was funny. Because I don't think I've ever had that happen before yet. Like, that's the first time that's happened to me, where someone just straight up was like, Mothman's not real. I'm like, oh yeah, oh really? Because
Yeah,
I've seen it.
well, at Frogman Festival, a guy came because if you remember at Frogman, they had the MetaZoo tournament
Yes.
happening at the same time. So there were a ton of MetaZoo people there that really didn't care about Frogman. They were just there
Right.
for the card game. And right where my table was, it was next to one of the bathrooms, and this guy had come over, I think with his daughter or whatever, but he was waiting for her to come out of the bathroom. And Tobias was talking to me, and this guy walks over and he's like, so what is this all about? What is this Frogman thing? And so we were kind of explaining it to him, and he's like, people don't actually believe in this stuff. Like Mothman isn't really, that's not real, right? And I just started laughing because I'm like,
Yeah.
of all the people for you to have this conversation with, you're talking to Tobias Whalen. Um,
Did
but
Tobias take him out in the parking lot and roll him?
uh, no, he kept it cool. I could see him like cringe just a little bit and take
Yeah.
a breath, and then proceeded just fine with the conversation. But I just couldn't. I'm like, man, this is unfortunate for you to start this conversation right here, right now.
Right.
But
Go back to
it
your own
went
table
fine.
at least. Damn.
Right. Go play your card game, dude. Get out of here.
Right,
Go play
yeah.
with
Well,
MetaZoo.
and that's what it was, seeing just the regular guests at the hotel. I'm like, I hope people did kind of wander in. I hope people did kind of learn something. I hope people did,
Yeah.
at least, maybe they're on the fence, and maybe this changed that for them.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's at minimum the best that you can hope for, because we forget, we're so close to it. We forget that there's people that don't think about any of this ever. It just isn't. They-
Yeah.
They're just normal people, they
The
don't know.
normal people.
And
Hmm.
I have times like, we sell, we have that the Frogman shirts that are very popular, the magical as fuck shirts. And when I wear mine out and about, people love it. And whenever someone comments, I mean, I'll be at a gas station, right? I'm buying a drink at a gas station. Someone's like, "Oh, I love your shirt." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's the Loveland Frog, a businessman back in the 1950s." Yada yada yada. And I just start, and they're like, "Wait, what?"
All I said was I like your shirt. I didn't. They
Yeah,
weren't expecting to get roped into a conversation.
yeah.
Like this is too much for me. I
And then
love
I
it.
like to be like, I don't know. I think a lot of things in my life are funny to me. Like I make a lot of personal jokes, and nobody gets the joke except for me, and that's how I live my life. And so it's fun to me when I wear like any type of cryptid shirt, and I go out and about, and someone's like, "Oh, I love your shirt," and I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I do for a living," and they're like, "Wait, what?" Then I explain it to them, but I'm just like deadpan, like, "Oh yeah, this is normal." I know it's not fucking normal. So anyway, but it, like I said, the best you can do is hope that maybe you educate somebody. Who knows, that poor unsuspecting soul at the gas station, maybe they went home and googled the Frogman,
That's right.
and they learned a little something. Maybe the bathroom guy learned a little something. That's the best you can hope for. I say it all the time with the show. And we have listeners that aren't into this stuff. They get into me and what I do because of like other things that I'm into. I'm big in the horror community. Maybe we have interest there, and they start listening to the show, and then they start actually learning something. I've had people come up to me and say that I don't listen to other shows about this kind of stuff, but I listen to yours. And that's my goal. My goal isn't to get paranormal people fans of the show; it's to get regular people fans of it, so that way they can learn. So.
Yeah, bring more into the fold.
Right. Come on in. Stare to the void. We'll pull you right in. We'll welcome you with open arms. It's comfortable here. Anyway, speaking of other things in Monster Fest, I know Pato's been waiting for this one. So it had kind of dawned on me that a lot of the people that were there had flown in, right?
Hmm.
And something that we very controversially talked about, and Heather, you can say as much or as little about all of this as you would like, on this show has been the Chicago O'Hare Mothman. Okay. Specifically
Mhm.
the O'Hare airport sightings, right? So
Mhm.
Jeremiah had mentioned Friday night that he had been delayed at O'Hare for like 3 hours. And I was like, oh, holy shit. I'm like, so are you going back to O'Hare? He's like, yeah, but I'm only there for like 30 minutes. And I was like, I
Oh, no.
was like,
Really? That's
yeah, I
okay.
was like, I need you to do something. So we have been trying to find, I've been trying to find, Tobias has been trying to find actual people that work at Chicago O'Hare Airport just to kind of ask them, hey, what's the deal with this Mothman stuff? Just to see, because here's the thing, if they have all of these winged humanoid sightings actually happening there, O'Hare employs over 30,000 people. They're talking about it, right? Amongst themselves.
Mhm.
Even if they haven't seen it, they still know that somebody there has seen it, you know? And I have a theory that maybe none of those sightings are legitimate. And I have I've been working very hard to try to legitimize these sightings. And so I thought, oh my God, let me ask around and see who all is going to hit up O'Hare Airport before going home. And I'm going to have them ask about Mothman at the airport.
Yeah.
So I did. So Jeremiah, unfortunately, was the only one that was going to be there. And he actually ended up he still wasn't there very long, but he did have a little bit more of a delay than he had
Okay,
expected
good.
on the way home. Yeah.
'Cause
And
30 minutes is not much for O'Hare for a
no,
layover.
no. He was like, I literally had like 4 minutes. He was like, and then, they delayed the plane for a little bit. He was like, so I started walking around. He got to talk to 3 different people. And this is what Jeremiah told me. Jeremiah said that the first gentleman he talked to all baggage people, all the people handling the baggage.
Mhm.
He said the first guy he talked to, he said there was definitely a language barrier. So the guy
Yeah.
had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. he was like, I asked about, have about the Mothman thing, and he was like, huh, and he was like a winged flying creature, and he's like, no. And then he goes and talks to another lady, and he starts talking to her, and he says the name Mothman. You've heard about the Mothman thing, and she's like, what? And he's like it's like a flying creature, like a flying humanoid thing, and she just like totally ignored him after that, and like would not talk to him, which was weird. But it could have just been because there's some crazy guy talking about crazy things.
Correct.
Who knows? So who knows? The third
Yeah.
person he talked to was wearing a name tag that made it very clear that this person was like the leader, like the team lead or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he said there was definitely not a language barrier at all there. And he talked to the guy, and he mentioned the Mothman thing, and the guy laughed and was like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. So
Wow.
now
You could have just told me that.
no, I couldn't have. It had to wait for the show.
Okay.
Yeah, you had to wait for it. It's a big deal.
But it's a big deal, but that's exactly everything that I not to
That
make
you were
this about
expecting.
me, but like this is everything that, like, because I live here and I know people that have worked at O'Hare, or I've said the same thing. Like I there's like Asher said, there's a lot of people that work at O'Hare, and I know people that have worked there, and I know people that have family that have worked there, and I know people that have dated somebody that worked there. I know somebody, or someone's cousin used to work there, and nobody has ever come forward and said that they, as an O'Hare employee, has had any knowledge of this stuff.
Right, at all. Right.
Right. And that Jeremiah confirmed. I mean, I wouldn't say this is absolute confirmation, but it definitely
Right.
seconds that, that perception of things.
It helps because it's another person that's not me that seems like I have a bone to pick with somebody, because I don't. My bone to pick is with the truth, right? So that's what it is. But because I am so involved with the topic, right? It may seem like I have some type of bias, right? But now I don't. I have a third party, somebody who's unrelated to any of it all, right? Someone like
Mhm.
Jeremiah, who generally has a neutral stance about everything, saying, look, I went there and I talked to people and they had no idea what I was talking about, and somebody said it just wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'm at with it, and it's only 3 people, that is a drop in the bucket, right, of the airport. At this point in time, my absolute last attempt at trying to find any legitimacy at all to these sightings is going to be to go there myself and talk to
Mhm.
people. And I
Yeah.
might get kicked out.
No, honestly, you won't, because there's they actually have a problem with homeless people living in O'Hare right now.
Oh, good.
So you walking around and talking to people, I think you'll fly under the radar a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I've already talked to Tobias about it. He's on board. Him and I are both going to go there and talk to people and just see what it is that people are saying about the climate of it all. I also, a little birdie told me that they are going to be filming a TV show, and that the TV executives of the show, they also couldn't locate any of the witnesses. So this continues to be a thing. Now, Heather, you guys did a whole thing on this, right? A little thing, right? You guys did
Yeah.
on the Trail of Lake Michigan Mothman. Were you
Mhm.
guys able to locate anybody that you felt was credible, or even any of the witnesses to specifically the O'Hare Airport situation?
No, there were no witnesses for the O'Hare airport that we had interviewed.
Yeah.
The people that we talked to, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, we had one, probably 2 or 3 witnesses, I guess. And I wasn't second guessing that they had encounters, but they weren't anywhere near the airport when they
Right.
had their encounters. So
Yeah.
no, I never found any. And Tobias was my main link when that started up too.
Right.
Because he had already interviewed a lot of people in that area. So, yeah, no, nobody. I got no one.
The O'Hare stuff is I feel like newer. the documentary that you guys did with Tobias, that stuff focused on, I feel like, mostly the downtown area.
Mhm.
Because that's where when the
Yeah.
first sighting started to happen, that's where it was downtown. And this O'Hare stuff is within the past couple years. It's a fairly
Yeah.
recent development, and that's where most of the sightings seem to be coming from. Is O'Hare employees or people that are in the west burbs out there, like right around O'Hare Airport.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's like two different. I want to say flaps, but yeah, fuck it, flaps. The downtown's it's different. It's different.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and I've said that. I do believe the people that saw it in the city. Which is crazy because you think you'd have all these witnesses, but you know what? That tracks for Mothman sightings. You have groups of witnesses where not everybody saw them. The original cemetery sighting in oh my gosh, and not Point Pleasant, but right there in West Virginia. Not all of them saw it either, in the group. So that tracks. That makes sense.
Was
The
that Clendenin or something?
Clinton, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's how you say it, Clinton,
Yeah.
Klondike. I don't know. It happened in West Virginia. They were digging some guy's grave. It's fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but it was it was actually the original only the one guy in the group that saw it. They were digging the grave of his father-in-law, and
Mhm.
and he saw it, and he was like, "Oh my God, you guys see that thing?" And they're like, "No, we didn't see that.
No.
We did not see that thing." And then a couple days later, all hell breaks loose. But anyway, again, but that's not the only instance of that happening. Groups of people have seen this thing, but then only some people in the group have seen it. Why? I don't know. The hair stuff, it's just there's not a single witness that isn't anonymous. They're all coming from one person. And I'm not saying that this person's a bad person or anything. I don't know. I've never talked to him. Never have. I will. At some point I will. But I've said it before and I'll say it again here. I would be terrible at my job if I didn't point this out to everybody. If I didn't try to really get to the bottom of it, and try to find anything else that tracks that isn't coming from that single person's mouth. I
Mhm.
need to hear it from other resources. And I haven't been able to find them. I've tried and I will continue to try because nobody wants this to be more real than I do.
Mhm.
But so far, this is where we're at. Still a big old nothing burger. So take that for what you will. Any other thoughts from anybody from the room from about the O'Hare Mothman?
Nope.
No,
Pato?
I got
Okay.
nothing. I got nothing.
Okay.
I look forward to you coming out here.
I will be out there. It'll be before September.
Oh, okay. Are you gonna let me know in advance, or are you just gonna surprise me and show up? So,
I'll
just want to see my
um
reaction when you
yeah. As
show up
as
at my
I'm
house.
leaving, I'll text you and I'll be like, "Hey, I'm heading out." I'm just kidding.
Motherfucker, you got 4 hours and 25 minutes until I'm at your doorstep. All right.
Like, "Oh, I didn't see you this time. Sorry." I'm just, I'm just kidding. We'll figure it out. But yes, that'll be happening, and I'll let everybody know how it goes. I have my suspicions, but we'll see. So, okay. In other news, I didn't want to talk about this. It's my show. I guess I don't have to, but I also feel like I kind of have to. This is kind of something that's breaking news today. Some guy, some whistleblower has come forward and is challenging U.S. Congress because he's saying that they have UAP debris and full crafts at that they have been trying to reverse engineer. Pato, you were in that room earlier. You heard about it a little bit, huh?
Yes, and I read the debrief article as well.
Yeah. Heather, are you familiar with this?
No, I've been asleep for the last couple days.
Well,
So what's going on?
it's breaking news in the UFO world. How dare you? Listen, it's not. It's the same shit we've been hearing this whole time, right?
Mhm.
So I don't even know who he is. Pat, do you know who the guy is?
No, they haven't said it yet. He's just being described as a whistleblower. There's an interview with him, and he turned over classified info to Congress about downed UFO craft of extraterrestrial origin. And supposedly there's he tried to take this story to the New York Times a couple months ago, and the New York Times was going to run it. And this was when, because you like to bring up that we already knew this info, that the
Yes.
Pentagon said this when they
Mhm.
first started the UAP hearings. Well, there was a New York Times article that was supposed to go along with that got shut down. So now this guy took this info to the debrief, I believe it's called.
Yeah, the debrief. Yeah.
Yes, and they ran it. They have an interview with them. Newsmax has picked up on it. That's the other place that I've seen it, and it's been verified by people on the record and off the record. And I don't have that list of names in front of me. You would probably have to watch the interview or whatever. But yeah, so you're right. This isn't necessarily new info, but it's a little bit more substantiated than what we had heard before.
I suppose.
Yeah.
He's doing something. He's taking some type of legal action to do something. I really don't know. I'm exhausted with it. I haven't dug too deeply into it just because, like Pato said, you guys go back and listen to the show. How many times have I brought up the fact that the Pentagon itself went on record saying they have crashed debris and we've never heard anything about it again? Every single time we talk about it.
And that's part of his complaint too, is that he's kind of accusing this UAP committee of not doing what they're supposed to have been doing. Like, they're not, like, what are you guys up to? You have this info, you haven't done anything with it.
Right.
And now he's taking it to the press because it's not like you said. You and him are very, very aligned in your belief systems. like why? Okay, why wasn't this a bigger story? And once again, that goes back to the New York Times was supposed to do this whole thing on it, and they dropped it. And so now he's been trying to find other news sources to move forward with this and kind of expand on this. And I don't know if the debrief and Newsmax are really top tier stuff, but I mean, it's something. And I think that maybe the fact that the New York Times did drop it is part of the story too, right? Because why did that get killed? Why did that story get killed? And that was one of the things that they were talking about in the clubhouse room today. That, it was probably killed because of government interference.
Yeah. Well,
you got to prove that, right? I mean, otherwise it's just conjecture, but it stands to reason that that's probably what happened.
Right. And the Pentagon statement about the debris, once again, I'll mention it. This is something you guys can Google. This isn't he said, she said, maybe. This was the official response to the media from the Pentagon that said this back in 2020 when disclosure boomed, right? When that whole movement boomed, that was one of the first things they said. We have crashed debris that isn't of human origin. They said that. And then we have never heard anything about it ever again.
Right.
And I'll vouch for the debrief. That's our buddy, Micah Hanks. That's his deal, his publication. And he's a good dude. He knows his stuff. I'm confident and what he says. So I can't imagine he would just take this on and if he thought there was any bullshit to it, because, well, guess what? There's not. All the pieces of the puzzle, unlike the Chicago O'Hare Mothman, are there, so it makes sense. I don't know. Heather, do you know much about this topic in general?
No, not really.
That's okay.
Nope. Yeah. I only really get into any type of UFO stuff if it's something directly related to what we have to film.
Yeah.
But UFOs aren't really on my personal radar. So
you don't look for UFOs on your at-home radar that you have.
No.
What if I told you they were being flown by Goatman?
Oh, I'm in now. I got no choice.
Yeah. Now it's on you. I don't listen. There's nothing to get into here, you guys. They've been saying the same shit for years and years and years and years and years. I've had whistleblowers come to me and say the same shit. Exactly that. We have crafts. We have them. I don't need to hear over and over again that we have them. I need to see them now, right? That's where I'm at with it. And people have been on social media, they've been kind of cracking on because I'm just unimpressed by this. And it's like, I'm not unimpressed by this because this isn't new to me. This is not
right.
Groundbreaking.
Well, the momentum is starting up again. And that's the thing, is that we're not going to go from a full stop to any kind of breakthrough without a buildup of momentum. And that's what this is. Now, whether or not this leads to anything, who
Yeah.
knows? You are extremely well within your rights to be suspicious about this being the straw that broke the camel's back, because we've been to this dance before and thought that
Right.
it would go a different way, and it doesn't. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. This isn't new information. But sometimes a story. Neither was. I hate to fucking bring it here, but neither was the Cosby stuff. People knew about Cosby forever and a day, and what was it that was the tipping point that brought that guy down and got all those victims justice? Hannibal Buress doing a stand-up bit that got recorded and went viral, like on TikTok. Hannibal Buress talking
I didn't
about,
know
like,
that.
y'all know Cosby's a rapist, right? And he started telling the same stories that everybody knew for decades. But it
Yeah.
went viral, and it just hit at the right moment, and the public latched onto it, and someone else came forward, and someone else came forward, and someone else came forward, and then boom, now Cosby's wherever he's at right now. I don't even know. But so that's sometimes how it happens. So this might be, maybe this is another false start, right? Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to get momentum again and it'll get shut down, or who knows,
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand your suspicion. I definitely do. And the people that get excited about it because they think it's new info, you're right to take him to task for it, because if we don't start remembering what we've already been told, we can never learn anything new. So
Right.
yes, pay attention to the tapes, guys. Like we're already here, but okay, let's see where we go next. Maybe now, okay, we get more people on board, more people, something else happens. Who knows? Or maybe the thing dies again. And then the story then becomes, how many times does this have to be die for some reason before we realize that it's being killed? That like these stories are being shut down, that this is being suppressed in the media, that like we can release these bombshells over and over again and people kind of care for a day or two, and then suddenly everyone kind of forgets, and the media doesn't latch onto it and no one talks about it again before that becomes problematic behavior that we should investigate.
You know what, Pato? You're absolutely correct about that. And
I am
listen,
about most things, but thank you for noticing.
I have a Medium account, and I think I'm going to write an article exactly about that, because you're right. The issue again, everybody's like, "Oh, we're ready for UFO disclosure." We are ready. The regular everyday person, again, that doesn't even think about this shit, they're probably not ready. And that's the problem. Again, we're all standing way too close to the topic. Our focus needs to be, yes, we need to network with each other. Yes, we need to share information amongst each other. However, our demographic, our focus needs to be on the normal people. And until that shifts and that happens and we start gaining momentum in that regard, when we start getting normal people to care about this stuff, that's when something's going to happen. And that's my take on it all. So that's the only thing I got to say about that.
Rock and roll.
Well, with that being said, a little over an hour into this episode now.
Oh, I got one news thing I want to talk about. Just one,
okay,
real quick,
ahead.
and this is just a shout out. So, going back to Frogman Festival, there was a duo that came up to our table and was talking to me for a while, and they have a podcast. They're from Chillicothe, Ohio. I've learned how to say that word. Thank you. They're called.
It's still wrong, but that's okay.
It is. Oh, that's great.
Y'all laughing at me? Is that what's going on right now?
It's Chillicothe, Pato.
Chillicothe.
It's Chillicothe.
It sounds more sophisticated when you say it that way,
Right.
It does.
So the name of the podcast is Cult Talks Conspiracy. It's kind of like a podcast network, the Cult Talks. And then, so it's Cult Talks Conspiracy, but they have like a Bruce Campbell cult talks that they do, and they do cult talks on different topics or whatever. And like I said, the two co-hosts came up to our table, and they look kind of like us. Like it's a burly bearded guy with glasses and a cute little redhead chick. And I was like, you guys, it's kind of like what we do. And I checked out their podcast, and it's pretty good for the most part. I don't listen to every episode, but I'll listen to certain episodes. This month's episode of Cult Talks is about, in honor of Pride Month, and one of the co-hosts is queer, so they're allowed to do this. It's about the gay agenda conspiracy theory.
Oh,
and
nice.
I thought that it was perfect timing. Obviously, it's Pride Month. June is, and I thought that it was very interesting for them to do this. It made me want to do an episode on it, even though I know we're already kind of booked for this month. But it's worth listening to, and it's all about the history of gay conspiracy theories about gay people and gay cultures and the gay agenda, using air quotes and stuff. And it's definitely worth checking out. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. Obviously, they don't get into everything, but they start with kind of, they talk about don't ask, don't tell, McCarthyism. They talk about the stuff in the 80s, and really worth listening to. So Cult Talks, Conspiracy. You can find them on all the different podcast platforms. And at the very least, instead of going to Target and buying a rainbow shirt, check out this month's episode, because I think that it's worth listening to. It was very informative. I enjoyed it.
That actually sounds very cool. I'm totally on board with that.
Well, that's why I brought it up, Ed. It's interesting that you would think that.
Even though you pronounced Chillicothe wrong, I forgive you.
First of all, who's to say who's right and who's wrong there? It's a matter of opinion.
What do you got two Ohioans telling you? You know what?
You know what? I've eaten your people's fucking chili. I don't believe a goddamn word that comes out of your mouth. All right, I've eaten that swill that you people pass off as fucking chili. So don't talk to me about the brilliant people from Ohio. All right,
come on the show and talk
cool,
about
but like
chili, okay? If you
fuck you, I'll die on that hill.
Ways to quit, all right?
I will die on that hill. That's like. If Jeremiah Byron and the CIA ever do come after me, that's all they have to do is kill me, is put a funnel in my mouth and pour some fucking Skyline chili down it.
In all fairness, that's actually a really that's a big debate in Ohio, right? Half of the people don't even fucking like that chili, so I don't know. That
fucking soup shit, that's not chili.
I don't know why it's a thing, but it is a thing. But
I had no idea.
Well, it's become an Ohio staple. I don't know. All right. Well, very nice. Very good information. I'm going to check it. I don't listen to podcasts, and I'm going to check that one out because that sounds really neat and informative. So,
and timely. Yes, it was very timely. I'm almost angry that they did that, and I think that next year we have to steal their idea.
I agree.
And do that for June, because I was like, God damn, it's a fucking good idea.
That was a really good idea. I like that idea a lot. We talked about doing like a very gay centric show before, but didn't really. I don't know why we didn't jump there. I don't. Anyway. No, another time, right?
Right.
So they are alternative universe us, so it makes sense that they did it and we didn't. So
sure,
it's the only way it could be. So, so Heather, why don't you, for the people that don't know, why don't you share with the room who you are and what you do and that spiel.
So, my name is Heather Moser. I am a researcher and producer for the documentary film company Small Town Monsters. I also write, like was discussed earlier. We'll have something coming out along with you, Ashers, in the Feminine Macabre Volume 5. But you can also check out some of my stuff in Volume 3 and 1. I've got some short stories that are out in various publications. Basically, if you follow my IG, I'll link stuff as it comes out. Research, producing, talking to witnesses, and writing. That's pretty much what I do.
And your big thing is like folklore and
yes.
I mean, is that really your main focus?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite thing to do is talk to people about their stories, but
sure.
I love diving into folklore and seeing the connections that we can make, particularly based on, for example, Appalachia and where the different immigrations had come in and how that's influenced the folklore in the area. I think one of the best pictures of me doing that is on Mothman Legacy, on our film Mothman Legacy, because I discuss how influence of different areas could create the Mothman in a way, like how they had similar stories, just different names.
Right.
And so it's not a surprise that these things exist. And you can find that anywhere. Oh, I guess Rougarou too. Rougarou was a big one. You can see how things change and evolve over time.
I love that.
Yeah, he's a fun one.
My favorite part is that your escape route from throwing your 13 pennies because you can't count to 13.
I have a kid's book called that, or it's not called that, but it's a kid's book about the Rougarou can't count to 13. That's how you get him to leave you alone for the night. You put out 13 coins because he can't. It's called 1-2 Rougarou.
Okay.
It's a little board book for kids, but it's adorable.
I love some of this stuff, those are my favorite aspects of it. The Rougarou, he's chasing you. So you throw your 13 pennies and he stops and he gets to
Mhm.
12 and he's like, fuck, what's after 12? God damn it. 1, 2, 3. And he just can't stop. And then like the Men in Black and how they're just dumb and they don't know how to use utensils and they don't know how to do anything. Like, I love
Yeah.
that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so we've had you on the show before, obviously, just to kind of more talk about just you in general and just the
Mhm.
basics, how you doing, what do you do, things like that. And
Yeah.
you kind of talked about how, of course, you got started into Small Town Monsters, and I don't, maybe I'm misremembering, but maybe I am remembering. The Mark of the Bell Witch was your first project with them, is that right?
So the first thing that I worked with them on was Momo, but
Oh
Mark
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
Bell Witch, that was like just kind of getting my feet wet a little bit. Mark of the Bell Witch is what drew me in because I had reached out to Seth when they announced they were going to be looking into Bell Witch.
Hmm.
And I said, hey, I'm already doing research on that. Do you want help? And he said, yeah, but can you start with Momo? So then it was Momo, Mothman Legacy, and Bell Witch. But Bell Witch is what got me into it. So
It was one of your big ones, yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
let's bring Heather in on this because I know that this was more of a. Well, you're right. You were researching it beforehand, so this was more of a
Hmm.
passion piece than it was work at that point, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, you were really into it. Why don't we kind of just go ahead and start and just give us the bare bones basic of what is the Bell Witch story?
Okay. So the basic story, it spans from about 1817 to 1821, so relatively short period of time. But the Bell family that lived in Robertson County, Adams, Tennessee, it was the Red River community at the time. Um, they had just moved. Well, I don't know about just moved, but they had come in from North Carolina, living in that area, and everything seemed fine at first. And then they started to have weird occurrences. One of the first things was the patriarch, John Bell, saw a creature out in the cornfield that was a dog with a rabbit's head. Um, Shot at it, it disappeared. And then one of the boys saw this massive bird, like freakishly large, I guess you could say maybe thunderbird. Um, then they would hear scratching on the floors or the bedposts at night in the house, scratching on the walls. So it started as noises, eventually became like little pinpricks, and they could feel, especially Betsy, the daughter, her hair would get pulled. John would get pricked and poked. And eventually it turns into a voice that starts as a whisper and not really intelligible. And then it becomes a very clear voice that is sort of, especially mocking John Bell. She makes it pretty clear that her goal is to torture him specifically. And ultimately, over the course of several years there, it becomes such a well-known thing that's occurring in the Bell household that people are flocking in from all over to just
Hmm.
spend the night at the farm. They're not paying to stay or anything like that. They said that the family just let them, they provided them a place to sleep for the night, and they could come in and they would hear the witch saying things, never really seeing anything, just hearing, or the pinpricks or whatever. But ultimately, John Bell starts to get very ill. One morning, he's not responding. And next to his bedside is a vial that I think they said 2/3 of it was empty, but it had like a black liquid in it. There had been a doctor that had been coming to the house because he had been unwell, but this was not something that the doctor brought. They were unfamiliar with the liquid. Um, and they actually took the story. The story goes that John Bell Jr. took the vial, like stuck his finger in it, and then let the family cat, lick it, and the cat promptly flipped over and died.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And when that happened, then the witch kind of laughed and said, "Yes, I fixed him real good. I fixed old Jack," as she'd call him. I fixed old Jack real good. That was me. John Bell died. During his funeral, she was supposedly singing and cheering and just being really rude.
What? Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was December 20th, 1820 is when he died. Um, she continued some of her antics against Betsy up through the spring of 1821 because for whatever reason that we don't really understand, she was not a fan of Betsy being with the love of her life. Joshua Gardner was his name. They were engaged, and she basically continued to threaten that Joshua would be just like John Bell had been. Like, I will treat him like I did your daddy. He won't make it. And they ended up calling the engagement off. She ends up marrying her school teacher, who was significantly older than her. And then she moves down to Mississippi later after he had passed away. But that was kind of the end of it. She did supposedly come back 7 years later and spoke just to John Bell Jr., I believe, and kind of did this Nostradamus type prophesying.
Huh.
I don't know what all was said in that. I'm not even sure that was recorded, but she did come back at that 7 year. And then she was supposed to come back 107 years later, but there's no documentation that anything weird happened at that point. But yeah, that was one of the oldest ghost stories in America, and one of the first, if not only, stories where a spirit like admitted to killing a person.
Yeah.
But there's lots of other weird things that happened in between that. But that's a quick summary of it.
That's, yeah, and I mean, that was pretty good.
Thanks.
You did great.
Thank you.
So, you know, the creatures involved in it with it, right? Because it's not, you're not just talking about like, you know, you got all these famous hauntings, right? I mean, I'm not even going to list off a name. You guys know what a famous haunting is if you listen to the show, right? And typically, you know, you have ghosts in a house and maybe they're kind of terrorizing a family, like you said. Well, maybe more like the pinpricks and whispering and things like that. But like, you don't always have like weird rabbit dog creatures and giant birds, you know, involved.
Right.
You know, and then this one in particular is a little more personal because she seems to have this direct obsession, you know, like you said. I mean, obviously John was her target, you know, she wanted to take him down. For what reason? And she did seem to have this fascination with Betsy, and why. You know, what was the deal there? Now we kind of know a little bit about the witch, don't we? Doesn't she have a name attached to her?
So the name that stuck with her was Kate. But
Is that
that
because she
was
said it was her name?
no, it's because she said during one of the times that they were trying to get her to like admit who she was. She said a bunch of different things about what she could be, but one of the things that she said was that she was Kate Batts's witch. And Kate Batts was a woman in the community who had a land dispute with the Bells. Also, though, apparently is like a cousin of, I believe, Lucy, John Bell's wife. But there had been some sort of land dispute. She was a very odd woman. And so this spirit had said, I'm Kate Batts's witch. And so then the name Kate just stuck. But she also said other things. Like at one point she said that she was an immigrant who had buried treasure out by underneath this massive rock by the river, and that she needed the treasure found or whatever. And so John and some of the boys went and they dug all afternoon and never found it. And then when they got back to the house, she laughed at them for being so stupid, believing such a story. And then
that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, she is pretty funny. And then another story, she said that she was a Native American spirit that was disturbed because the boys had gone out and dug up her bones, a skull in particular, and brought it back to the cabin and had dropped the skull, and like a tooth fell down the crack in the floorboards. So they ripped the floorboards up. They can't find anything. She laughs at them for that as well. Like, come on, as if I'm going to tell you who I really am. So I wouldn't trust anything that she had said, but that was one of the one of the monikers that she said, I'm Kate Batts's witch. And so then Kate just stuck.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that sounds a lot like what happens in demon possession, right? So when people are possessed by demons, usually, you know, when they're trying to figure out, well, which demon are you, they'll tell different stories about who they are. And, you know, why the fuck would you believe a demon anyway? So, I mean, who knows? So what happened? Why was John's wife not in the picture? Did she die early on?
No, she was there, but she was favored. She was the only one that Kate, if we want to call her that Kate was nice to. Actually, and that's also weird. I argue that I don't know exactly how much she would have really favored her if she's torturing Lucy's husband and daughter.
Fair.
But she would sing to her when Lucy was unwell. There's a story where Lucy was sick and she just manifested like nuts and fruits from like India, like exotic places, just
Wow.
manifested out of thin air and fell into Lucy's lap while she was in bed because she wanted her to eat and get better. And she would recite things to her to help to calm her and soothe her. So I don't know what that is about either. But she was the only one in the family that she wasn't like outright nasty to.
That's I had no idea about that part.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. That adds a whole nother I have a theory, but I'm not gonna say it quite yet. Um
We'll dive a little deeper.
yeah. So and it is interesting because they would let people come and see this. Now I've heard people kind
Mm-hmm.
of try to debunk the entire story saying that it was just pretty much it was just like the climate of religion at the time and the whole report that came from one original source that this was kind of an allegory for that.
Yeah.
And that's what this was all about. But I mean, this is a very well documented situation. um when it comes to word of mouth, right? Everybody, like you said, people were able to come and stay there and experience it for themselves. It
Right.
wasn't,
So
oh, go ahead.
it happened. So we know that it happened between 1817 and 1821, but the first like written account, like the book that most people refer to, was written by M.V. Ingram, and it didn't come out until 1894.
Hmm.
So there was a massive gap in time. The reason that M.V. Ingram says nothing was written prior to that is because all of the Bell kids, they wanted to be dead before anything was written about what had occurred to them. So
Okay.
after the final Bell child died, because when this was all happening, I feel like it was Joel that was the youngest. I can't remember, but he was very young when this occurred. So
Hmm.
they waited until after he died, and then M.V. Ingram published his book. Now, when he was in the process of publishing his book, the local newspapers had all kinds of stories about the printing was delayed because the witch was messing with the presses and all this other stuff. So it was discussed at that point in time. Um, but there were other I remember going through old newspaper articles when I was doing research for Mark of the Bell Witch, and there was an article that references the the story like as it's happening, or shortly after, because there was a house nearby, like in the, I don't know, not really counties at that point, but not far from that community, that was having a similar situation where people were coming from all over to witness what was occurring. And they reference that this is not that different than what had occurred at the Bell family home just a few years prior. Um,
Interesting.
so I don't think that the whole story was like made up out of nowhere.
Right.
It's completely possible, but by the time M.V. Ingram writes it down 70 years later, that there's a lot that's maybe changed or, whatever. But yeah, I don't think that it was just something made whole cloth out of nothing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You've got people now. Oh, somebody, I can't remember. I told somebody that we were doing this episode with you, and they told me to talk to someone specific because they are related to the Bell family, and I can't remember who it was now.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in this community, I can't remember who it was. But you have that to this day still, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you have these people that generationally they've carried the story because it's been in their family for so long.
Well,
Um,
yeah, the Bell family's still there. I mean, there's parts of the
right,
Bell family still there, and they'll talk. Not all of them, but the one, and I cannot remember his name right now because I would like to, so that's why. But there is one
sure,
that he like Bob. I think it's Bob Bell. I could be wrong. Anyway, he helps run, or did help run, a funeral home in one of the towns nearby Adams. But he's one that if you watch any of the documentaries on TV, like Ghost Adventures or whatever, he's the face that you'll see associated with the Bell family, one of
right.
the descendants. So, um, of the descendants that are willing to talk about it. But yeah, no, it's still definitely a part of everything. I mean, it's a part of that little town. That's what brings people to Adams. There's nothing else really there. It is a very, very tiny town.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's just a bunch of nothing. What's the deal with the Bell Witch Cave? That's kind of a newer thing, isn't it?
so that was something that at first, when I first started looking into this, I it was the same thing for me where I'm like, what is the point of this cave? Because you read most of the accounts and there's no reference to a cave.
Right.
However, there is one story of the children playing in the cave. The cave is, I mean, it's on the original property, or what was the original property. Um, there's a story of the kids playing in the cave, and one of the little boys, I mean, at this point in time, they have like candles or lanterns or whatever. They don't have flashlights like we could. Um, they're back in the cave, and the one boy gets stuck, and the candle goes out, and he's just in the darkness completely.
Okay.
And some unseen force grabs him, gets like pulls him out so he's not stuck, and drags him out of the cave. And then I believe then like chastises him for being so stupid or something. Because that's the kind of stuff that she would do. But that was the only reference that I've really seen to the cave, was an incident of the boy getting stuck and then getting pulled out of that cave. But what's happened now, and what actually started me on the whole Bell Witch thing to begin with, is the idea that this cave, if you take rocks from the cave, then you may get cursed. Because I was
Oh,
actually looking into cursed objects, which is what started me into the
right.
Bell Witch thing to begin with. And the rocks from the Bell Witch Cave are one of these famous things that you can get and possibly be cursed. But the idea is that the cave, well, there's a few theories that the cave is like a portal in itself.
Mhm.
Um, but there's also there are burial mounds all over that area. But there are
Mhm.
very old burials that they found through like ground penetrating radar, that are above the cave. Like there were bodies buried above the cave in fetal positions. They face the sunrise, I believe, is
Huh.
what they told me. But they are very old. Like, I mean, older than what you would normally think for Native Americans in the area. We're talking like
Right.
quote unquote mound builder type old.
Right.
Um, so, uh, and so then the theory is, did they bury them above the cave because the cave was a sacred place and there was something to that idea? Or did they just happen to bury them above the cave for whatever reason? I mean, yeah. So that's the attraction now, is the cave, because the original Bell home is gone.
Right.
Um, and the people that own the cave, or the land with the cave on it, they do have a replica of the cabin reconstructed that you can pay to go in and go around. And they
Oh,
said that
okay.
they had like the original blueprints or something. So it's supposed to look just like the original cabin. But if you go to the cave, you can also visit what the cabin would have looked like. It's just not where the cabin would have been.
Right. Pat, did you
So,
have something that you wanted to?
Yeah, the cave thing. I watched. So I watched your small town documentary, small town monsters documentary today, which is
oh,
a whole
cool.
nother conversation I want to have about at the end of the show.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, the cave thing I thought was interesting because we do a Patreon exclusive show called Weird World, where every month we talk about a different state. And the
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii episode, we covered the Curse of Pele, which is
Mm-hmm.
very similar, where you're not supposed to take artifacts from Hawaii because
Right.
people that do experience bad luck, and there are people mail rocks and lava rocks and shit back to Hawaii on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Tourists that take stuff and then experience whatever and then send it back. So I thought it was interesting that there was a component of that in this story as well, because I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily expect that. The haunting stuff, and this might just me being a horror movie guy, it sounded very Evil Deadish, um, with like the cryptids and just kind of like it was very brutal and sadistic. You don't see that level of interaction. And I'm no haunting expert either, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like yeah, most stories don't go like this. Um, but something
Yeah.
that I did really interest me about that was talked about in the documentary is that you guys didn't they try to perform exorcisms or something, or banishings, and did they experience some level of success with that?
Um, Not that I am recalling right now from the story.
Okay.
The thing that's coming to my mind is that supposedly, now this one is something that they don't, it's argued whether it can even be verified or not. But one of the stories is that Andrew Jackson, Um, he was a general at the time.
Right. I
Came
saw that on
to
Wikipedia.
Yeah, he came to the Bell home with some of his men, and one of them was very arrogant and claimed to be a witch hunter, and said that he could take care of this problem. And the witch, of course, not manifesting physically, but her voice came about and basically said, "Okay, try it." And he said he had a silver bullet, which in witch lore is one of the things that can kill a witch if you were to shoot a witch or some sort of emblem of a witch or whatever. Anyway, so he says he has this silver bullet, and she says, "Okay, try me." And he can't, like, the gun will not fire. It won't work. He's having issues. And she just pokes and prods him to the point that he runs out of the house screaming. And she's laughing the whole time. But I don't recall any stories of anybody. I mean, like, the first time that she began speaking clearly was whenever the next door neighbor, who was a reverend, Reverend James Johnston, also one of the good friends of the Bell family, had come over to the home at their request because they were having these things happen and they wanted someone else to come see what was going on and try to figure it out. So he came over with his wife. They started to have some of the they were hearing the sounds and there was some movement or whatever. And he got frustrated enough that he said, "Who are you? What are you doing?" And there was this whispering, and he kept poking at it until then it started to talk clearly. Um, so I don't know if that's necessarily making it, well, I guess sort of making it worse because he called it out, but he got frustrated enough that he was like, "All right, let's go. Tell me who you are." And then she never really was forward about it, but I don't recall anything about exorcism. I'm not saying that it wasn't. It just might not be fresh in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting when that becomes a component of the story. And I
Mm.
was mistaken. I don't know. I mean, I was working from home today when I was watching the documentary, no offense, but so was on, but like
You're
I was
fine.
like typing reports and shit. But yeah, I guess it's just the like we have a we there's paranormal activity, right? And there's
Hmm.
religion,
Hmm.
and I always find it interesting when they intersect.
Sure.
And that doesn't seem to be the case here, so I'm just gonna shut up
Well,
about that. That's an
no,
interest
well,
that I'll shelve for another time.
but here's one thing that she did do, bringing religion into it, is that she would argue with um like any of the preachers that would come by or anyone who wanted to quote the Bible at her. She would go toe to toe with them, quoting biblical verses to argue with them. So
Maybe
she
that's what
was
I was hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, she was completely aware of the Bible inside and out and could just hold her ground against anybody who wanted to debate Christianity with her. She also had the ability to mimic voices and apparently be in multiple places at the same time. So they have examples of on like Sunday, two of the reverends in different parts of the area are giving their sermons. And she could, that evening, they would come back to the Bell house and she would recite both of their sermons word for word in their voice, as if she had been present for both of them and memorized them completely. And then, of course, was them because she was doing their voice. Um, so she had that ability as well. She also had the ability, the coolest part, I guess, terrifying, but the coolest part to me is what happened. They call it the witch family, where, and this was later on in the hauntings before John Bell dies, but a couple years into the whole situation, where four voices manifest and they all have names, um, but they bicker like a family.
Wow.
Um, and they said that you would be precipitated. You'd know the family was coming because you would smell like whiskey in the air. So as if somebody's drunk and they start this fighting. And the name, I'm not going to remember all four names, but because why would I do that right now? But
Right.
Psychopography, I know Psychopography was one of them, mathematics, Black Dog, that was the female voice. And holy crap, I can't remember the other one, but it was a mix between male and female and different ages as well. And they would just bicker and carry on with each other. And like you're hearing a family in a drunken fight, I guess. And this happened several nights as well. So, but
That's
they were,
pretty
I don't know,
that's pretty
that was
crazy.
entertaining.
The names are
Yeah.
interesting, because
Yeah.
those are
Yes. I'm
interesting
gonna
names.
Google it right now
That's
because
okay.
it makes me mad that I can't remember but yeah, Black Dog was the main. She would actually be the one that would stop them from arguing when it would get too carried away. I guess she had this really aggressive voice and just tell them to shut up. Um,
But how
yeah.
do you trust any? I mean, we've already if this entity established that it could change its voice and that it was a fan of misdirection.
Uh-huh.
Where do you where do you think that it's telling you the truth? It just seems
No, we
like,
don't, right?
yeah, it's
Right.
like 100% just trickster stuff.
Mhm.
They're sending them on these wild goose chases. They're coming up with this, this Indian burial ground explanation and fake treasure hunts and all this stuff that's just meant to like frustrate and I mean, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't even know if you could call it like I don't know what you would say this is.
Exactly. And that's,
So, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, I just looked up real quick. Jerusalem was the name of the other one.
Jerusalem.
Um, and Jerusalem was the little boy. Black Dog was the female. But yeah, with you couldn't trust anything. I wouldn't have trusted a word that she said. But another interesting thing is when you go through MV Ingram's book, the terms they go through a handful of terms when referring to this thing. It's referred as like a hobgoblin, a spirit, a witch, a demon. I mean, like it's a warlock, a fiend, um, a torturer of human flesh was one of my favorite things.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, they never settle on what it is, even in some of the original texts. Um, it gets marked as the Bell Witch, I think, more so because it was something unknown, and at
Right.
that point in time, that's witchcraft.
Sure.
Right.
Um,
I think it's an excellent example of people defining paranormal activity based on where they're at culturally. You know what I
right.
mean? Whether or not it's angels versus UFOs or it's witches versus whatever this thing is. Like the
Hmm.
choice of the family, like it's mocking. So it's antagonizing a family, so it understands the family structure.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this is aliens, but like so it understands like a family unit, right?
Yeah.
But its choice of names is like
Hmm.
so bizarre where it's just like it's almost like you're thumbing through a dictionary and you're picking out things that you might have overheard, or you're picking out just things like Jerusalem, mathematics, black dog. Like that's not
Hmm.
that doesn't follow any kind of structure or coherency. Those aren't really names. I mean, they kind of are, but like they're not names for people. And this intelligence doesn't seem to understand the two, or
Right.
they're trying to be more confounding. But I feel like that them picking those names to me feels like more of them kind of showing what they really are, and that's something with that doesn't quite have a grasp on what's going on here, or what we
Right.
are, or something.
Hmm.
Um, Man, yeah, I think that what a misnomer. I would say calling this a witch or like supernatural activity is definitely selling it short.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the qualifications that I said earlier, I mean, the closest thing it resembles that we know of is demon possession. But I have a hard time with that because I personally don't subscribe to that idea. So,
Hmm.
that is a weird thing. Let's talk a little bit about the land, and
Hmm.
maybe see if we can't go back any further. And I don't know if you, Heather, have personally gone back any further, but I don't know if you're familiar with any of the Native American tribes in that area and kind of what they believed in. Were there any? Did you find any connections to any of their lore? I mean, did they have an entity like this in any of those? Because I know there was, what, the Cherokee and the Chickasaw were there.
Hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
can't think of anything off the top of my head that sounds like that.
Yeah. I am not sure what tribes were there in that area because I didn't go back beyond when the bells were there,
Sure.
other than to note that even when I went down to Adams, different areas would be pointed out, like those are burial mounds over there. Um, and obviously, of course, natives were in the area before we
Sure.
were. Um, but I've also not heard in the discussion that kind of being brought into it of another of an older entity kind of making that making itself known in that way either, because a lot of times, at least at this point, I feel like in our field, you you hear about, even if they nobody goes into detail, you hear about, well, that resembles a Native American entity, and some name is given if there is a name, because it always, I think, almost legitimizes things a little bit to be like, oh yeah, the people before us also had this problem.
Right.
um, but the closest thing that I can think of is the idea that they found, well, the burials, of course, but then also on the cave itself, in one of the entryways, there's old scorch marks. So they had torches there at some point.
Hmm.
Um, and so they know that like older people had used the cave for whatever purpose that may have been. Um, Perhaps a ceremonial thing. I don't know. But yeah, I have no idea on that. I've not gone back into that aspect of things.
So one
Although
thing,
that's a good thing to do
yeah, I think
completely.
if nobody has, they should.
Mhm.
One thing that I noticed about Adams, Tennessee, is that, and maybe this will go off the rails just a little bit, is that it's only a little over an hour away from the very
Nashville.
famous, well, no, well,
Are you gonna say
maybe
it?
Oh,
What are you gonna say? Oh boy.
Hopkinsville,
the very
Hopkinsville.
famous land between the lakes.
Oh,
Oh,
shoot. Yeah, it's not far from where the Hopkinsville goblins were either.
Exactly right, and right, because that's kind of right there where all that. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
bunch of high strangeness in that area. Is basically the point.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that I have kind of picked apart about the land between the lakes situation, is it's researching lore, Native American lore in that area, and what they've had there, and specifically canine related.
Mhm.
And one thing that is interesting, and I'd have to check the map on this because I'm not entirely sure, but I do believe um, the land between the lakes is east of Adams. All right. And initially, the Chickasaw were in kind of more in that area, and they had ended up moving east, and they've come into that area um, because they were led by a dog, by some type of dog spirit that led them into this area and was kind of revered as a very good thing. So I do also find it
Hmm.
interesting, and maybe there's no connection at all. Maybe I'm just desperately reaching for strings, that in the family unit of the Bell Witch haunting, it's the black dog that's kind of the voice of reason, um, and all
Right.
that,
Well,
so
also, what's in the writings of the very first thing that kind of kicked it off was John Bell seeing a dog
right.
with a rabbit's head.
Yeah, which
Um,
is weird as fuck.
yeah, very weird. But the fact that it was definitively like a dog body, that's interesting too. Yeah, I just Googled it, and Land Between the Lakes is an hour west of Adams.
An hour west of
Um,
Adams. Okay.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting.
But
It's
it's
very
all really
interesting.
close. It's the
Yes.
same distance, like Hopkinsville is all within an hour. Um, yeah. Which then
Yeah.
that all puts it close to the Mammoth Cave system and all of that if you wanted to get into
Yes.
all that weirdness.
Right.
But
Now you're talking more
yeah.
caves, more portal caves.
Yeah,
Is there
portals.
something to that? I mean, how far away does a location have to be from one another in order for them to not be related? It's kind of what I find, because we could
Right.
probably find, a location that's south or north of Adams
Mhm.
about an hour. That is probably,
Very true.
so, who knows? I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Just because I guess that's probably the first thing that I would do, is really try to, I mean, when I research something, I try to really start from the very beginning, from the most beginning
Yes.
that I can. And, that would have been trying to
That's
find Native American lore that might potentially match this thing. Some people, I mean, I already know people are going to go, oh, shapeshifter, it's a skinwalker. Well, no, not necessarily. But potentially something similar, because shape-shifting stories are very popular amongst Native American lore, and I hate to be that person. A lot of people are
Yeah.
like, oh, it's Native American, so it's paranormal. It's not necessarily the case. It's
Right.
just that it shows a history of the area and kind of
Exactly.
what's normal for that area, or
Yeah.
paranormal for that area rather.
So
So
one of the books, aside from like MV Ingram was the first book written about it, and you can read that if you want. It's not like super exciting to read or anything, just the language is
sure.
odd, it's old. But Pat Fitzhugh is the historian who's done a ton of research. Him and Tim Henson, who's like the town historian. But Pat Fitzhugh has it's called the Bell Witch the Full Account book, which is invaluable. It's easy also to navigate. But just as you were talking, I was like, I bet Pat handled this Native American thing because he has done this for decades.
Yeah.
And just really quickly, he says in here that they have estimated most of the Native American graves on the Bell land are between 500 and 3,000 years old. Many years after the early Native Americans were buried in the county, the Cherokees and Choctaws made their permanent homes in East Tennessee and Mississippi, but they had previously been in Robertson County. The ancestors of the Cherokees and Choctaws were the Woodland and Mississippian tribes. So those would be the ones that were buried in the fetal positions, like the mound builders and things.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there you go.
This,
The Cherokee
yeah.
and Choctaws.
So something, I mean, there's something there, a jumping off point for sure, to try to, see if there's anything like it, in their stories. You know, to me, I said I would kind of share my theory, and to me, I feel like whatever this entity is, and you're gonna laugh. Everybody's gonna laugh. I know you're all gonna laugh at me. I think the Bell Witch was gay for Lucy.
Sure. I think there's different ways to say it, but yeah. I mean, it was very middle school about it, but yeah. All right.
Come on, listen. No, I'm serious. Okay, maybe the witch isn't gay because maybe the witch isn't a woman. Who knows what it was? But for whatever reason, it was fascinated with this woman, and the goal was to kill off, the patriarch of the family, and then even after killing off the patriarch of the family, well, guess what? They continued to do parent the daughter. So I mean, it's definitely an abuser, we're not saying it's the perfect relationship, but I think that for some reason it wanted to insert itself into this family, and I don't know if that's because there's some other relation going on there, from who knows, past family members or whatever. I don't know. I'm not saying, I don't think this is a dead person. I don't think these things are dead people, period. But to me it sounds like they wanted to be involved in the family, and they had a bone to pick with John. Clearly, I mean, they didn't kill anybody else in the family. Why not? Well,
right,
because it wanted to be the dad. I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm coming up with. Well, before I ask you what you think, Heather, I did want to ask you before I forget. Being a person that's been there, did you have anything intuitively that you felt? Did it feel strange, or did anything strange happen? Or, I mean, was it weird?
So I've been there a couple times, and the first time that I was there, I didn't get to see the cave because it had been raining, and there's a natural spring that flows through the cave.
Oh yeah.
So when there's been a heavy rain, the cave floods, and it's inaccessible anyway. So the first time I was in Adams, I just spent the time going to the town hall, which is also like the history museum and a restaurant and all this stuff all packaged into one, and spending most of my time with Tim Henson, who I guess he didn't drive us around. We drove him around, and he pointed out different places and took us to cemeteries and so on. So, and some of the ruins of some of the houses and things like that. So that was just really awesome. In that moment, like that, it wasn't anything weird. It was just great that he happened to be at work that day, because I guess he isn't always there, and then happened to have the day free to go around with us. And so that was nice. The next time that I was there, it had been by this point, I'd already made friends with both the cave owner and one of the tour guides via like social media and things. And then we hadn't made the Mark of the Bell Witch yet. It still hadn't been a thing. But anyway, yeah, that was like a year or two beforehand. Anyway, nothing weird happened you know what? I take that back. I'm so sorry. Now that I think about it, I went there to the cave because I wanted to see these letters that people send when they send these rocks back. And when you go in to buy your ticket to go to the cave, it's like this gift shop. And in all the walls of the gift shop are covered with letters from like the 90s through today of people saying, I took this rock. I'm so sorry. Please put it back. My life fell apart. And some of the descriptions they have are horrible. And I had asked for my research if I could come in and like spend the day writing these letters down because they won't let you take pictures of them. And they said, yeah, you can hang out as long as you want. And so that's what I did for a day. I was in there just writing these letters down in my notebook. But later then I had my family come meet me at the cave. I'd already gone there once and had the tour. Then I had my kids come. And at this time, my youngest was 5. Yeah, 5. And another aspect of the gift shop is behind the counter where you buy the tickets. At least at this point in time, they had shelving in the back that each shelf had porcelain dolls on them. And the porcelain dolls had been painted by Chris, the one who owns the cave. I think Chris and her daughter paint them to look like grotesque.
Okay.
So they're creepy looking dolls, but they're porcelain. Anyway, they're on these shelves. You can buy them and take them home. I had already found one of these dolls at a museum, a museum that collects haunted items in West Virginia. So I already kind of knew what these things looked like before I saw all of them. But my daughter, who was 5, when we first walked in there, she asked if she could take one home. And I said, sure. Yeah, whatever, but let's go through the cave first. I'm not going to have you bringing a porcelain doll into a cave and dropping it and breaking it. So we go through the cave. We get back. As soon as we leave the cave, she takes off up the hill, which it's a huge hill from the cave to the gift shop, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't really a big deal that she took off. There wasn't really anybody around other than us. She gets up to the gift shop. By the time I get up there, she's sitting on a bench inside and she's holding this doll. And the girl that was behind the cash register, which is the granddaughter of the cave owner, already knew me at this point because I'd been in there for hours. She was like, Heather, I tried to convince her to get a different one, but that's the one she wanted. And I was like, okay, what's the deal with this doll? And she said, well, and you could see where my daughter had taken it off the shelf, where it had been taken off the shelf. It was down low. It was at like an eye level for a 5-year-old. So it was on one of the bottom shelves. But she said that the week before we got there, that doll had been on the top shelf, which is about 6 feet up or so off the ground, 6-7 feet up. And while everybody was bustling around buying tickets and stuff, that it flew off of the top shelf a couple feet forward and fell straight to the ground. And it didn't break, even though it's a hardwood floor, and it was quite a drop. And it didn't just tumble off, it came off the shelf a little distance. And they thought, okay, well, if weird stuff's going to happen, we're not going to keep it up on the top shelf, because if it's going to break itself, then we can't sell it, right? So they put it down lower, which just happened to put it at perfect eye line for my daughter a week later, who walks in. And she's like, I tried to tell her if she wanted a blonde doll, we've got these ones. If she wanted one, and it's in a Christmas outfit. She's like, if she wanted one in a Christmas outfit, we've got this one. And so I was like, Lily, what's going on? She's like, no, I want her. She wants to come home with us. She was like, she's afraid that if we don't take her, nobody else will take her because she's so ugly, or something like that. And she was like, her name is Sasha. And so we have Sasha. We've since gotten another doll from the cave, but so that was the weird thing that happened there, is we got Sasha, which she insisted on holding on the ride home. When we did get home, she would go maybe a day without, because since she's porcelain, I have her up on a shelf.
Mhm.
She would ask about once a day if she could play with Sasha or have Sasha sit with her and watch TV. And there was this one candle that she insisted Sasha have near her that it was an electric candle, like a battery operated candle. If you would turn the candle off, it would just turn right back on. But
Oh, wow, okay.
other than that, oh, yeah, okay. So then also, now that I'm thinking, it's
Okay.
been so many years. For a short period of time, I was writing for Shannon LeGros's Weird Writer blog for her Into the
Yeah.
Fray podcast. And I wanted to write about Sasha, and Blossom was the name of the doll that I found at the museum that was haunted and apparently very nasty. And I had taken a picture of Sasha, and I was typing it up, and Lily walked into the room and she saw the picture of Sasha on my computer. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm writing about Sasha and how we got her." And she said, "Don't." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "If you make people scared of her, Sasha will get mad."
Oh,
And I'm
no.
like, "Okay, well, I'm not saying anything bad about Sasha. I'm just saying what she is, where we got her, you know." I'm not going to talk smack about Sasha.
Yep, talking that shit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but other than that, nothing really weird has happened. As far as anything else that's occurred when I was there, I didn't get any weird feelings. I had a moment where I was so excited. We were in the cave, and there was a very clear voice that, I mean, it was like somebody was right there, a man's voice just echoing down the hallway. And I looked at the person next to me. I'm like, "Did you hear that?" And they're like, "Yes." And we both get excited. But then when we looked down the hallway, it was some random dude that had climbed off the cliff, because the cave overlooks the Red River.
Mhm.
And it's a pretty steep drop off right outside the cave down into the river. But sometimes people that are kayaking or whatever will climb the bluff. It's stupid, but they'll do it. And this person had done that because it was a dude in just like swim trunks that had climbed up the bluff and was just standing at the entrance of the cave because they shut a gate when you go in. And he was standing at the gate yelling in, I guess, just for fun. So my hopes were ruined in that moment. But for a second, I was like, this can't be. That's so clear. Like, how lucky am I right now to hear that? My first time at the cave. But no, it was just
Oh.
some random drunk dude who climbed the cliff.
Oh, no. Well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes those disembodied voices are just a drunk dude,
Right. Yeah.
It's that simple. Okay, well, I mean, that's fair enough. Because sometimes you do go to these places and they're just fucking weird.
Yeah.
So we had some technical difficulties I thought we should mention, and we're blaming it on Heather's doll.
It's Sasha's
It
fault.
was Sasha.
It's making her
We
look
didn't talk
bad.
any shit though, but now I
You
am.
know.
So
Oh no. Hey, you're not the one living with her.
that's
Stop.
true. I'm sorry. I won't do that to you. Fair enough. I'm sorry, Sasha. That's just what happens. It just happens when you deal with haunted objects. So there's that. So the big money question, right? The money shot right here is Heather. What do you think the Bell Witch? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I have no idea what it is. I've got nothing. Because it would be more of a poltergeist type thing based on the way that it acted, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the various voices and stuff. Normally, when you think of poltergeist, you're not thinking an entire family manifests.
Right.
Objects move, people get pinched or whatever, but nothing like that. So, I honestly have no idea. They still have weird things happen. My best guess would be that it would be multiple things that are there. I can. It would be easier for me to grasp the concept of it being a situation where it is like a portal and there are multiple entities in that area, whatever they may be, if it's a land entity or actual spirits or whatnot, but a bunch of stuff all in one place for whatever reason. Just because things have persisted through this day. Nothing that's claiming to be the witch necessarily, but they still have weird things happen all the time. And that's all over the map. of the stuff that has manifested. So I don't know. It's a bunch of stuff at once, I guess. And at that time, maybe it was one of them just had a really good sense of humor. Um,
Sure.
because it's hard not, even though she was horribly nasty and obviously she killed John Bell. Yeah, okay, I know, but she was pretty funny. I mean,
She's like, I can forgive the murder as long as you're hilarious.
she was pretty hilarious with some of her stuff, and she wasn't taking crap from anybody. So
Yeah.
Just
I
to
don't
bring
know.
it full circle, style and enthusiasm goes a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And
It
that's why we're
does.
still talking about her.
Well,
She had flair.
exactly. Right. I mean, clearly, there's some impact there that people remember. And
Mhm.
it was all in jest. I think it's interesting that you bring up that, it could be a multitude of things. So like maybe the identities involved were legitimate and it was all of those things. I don't know.
Well, the other aspect of the witch family, there's a story 'cause normally nothing manifests um in like a humanoid form with with the story of the Bell Witch. But with the witch family, there is a situation where Betsy leaves the house and goes to her sister's home for the afternoon or whatever. Often Betsy would try to leave in hopes that things would kind of settle for her, but really this thing followed her wherever she went. So it didn't really matter if she was at home or to friends or whatever. But
Yeah.
she went over to her sister's and they saw in the orchard across the road the family, I guess you could say. It was a woman and a little boy, and then the two others were like bending the apple tree saplings and just bouncing on stuff. She could see it, and I believe her sister saw it because as all of this is occurring, the sister's husband comes home, and Betsy asks her brother in law to start shooting at them. And he gets his gun. He can't see anything, but they're like,
Right.
the log over there by whatever. And he shoots this log, and eventually the figures disappear. That night, back at the Bell house, the witch family shows up and they're all laughing. Well, all except Jerusalem, because they said Jerusalem's arm got broken by getting hit from the shotgun.
Oh.
Um, but they whatever it was manifested as four separate entities, like visible entities at one point. So it wasn't just, I mean, maybe not just a singular entity throwing its voice around. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a neat story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like they were just having a good time. I don't know why they
Right?
were trying to
They were
impose on that.
hilarious,
But
right?
yeah,
Let them
you're right.
be.
Well, and I even feel like them being like, "Oh, well, Jerusalem's arm got broken." Like that's not true. They just wanted them to feel bad about ruining their fun, because how can a demon, ghost, witch, whatever, you know, be shot by a gun? I mean, is that a thing?
Right. Right.
I don't know. But no, you're right. Man, they are hilarious. That is a group right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a demon improv group.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
a whole trope. Pato, you got any other questions?
Yeah, so no, I'm gonna make Heather very uncomfortable here for a second.
Oh boy.
Um,
Good
so I
luck.
watched the documentary today, and I know that you have an in with those people, the Small Town Monsters people.
I've heard of them.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you look at your Zencaster screen right now,
Okay.
over on the right where there's the chat, I am
Mm-hmm.
posting a link to my IMDb page. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
and you'll see all of my acting, my filmmaking experience. If
Okay.
you ever need a reenactment actor for
Okay.
so then the truck driver noticed a light in the sky, or like he was hunting and he saw a Bigfoot in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
call me the fuck up.
Okay.
I'm primarily a filmmaker, but both as any, like you work on each other's stuff, and I'm always like on set with somebody else and hey, we need someone to fill this shot in the background, and I don't choose scenery and I don't distract from the scene to bring attention to myself. Okay, I know how to
Mm.
do this, I know how to do it well. I've done theater here in Chicago. I would love I would love to be one of those reenactment actors that don't have to say a word because there's no audio, because whatever you're seeing me do is being explained by the talking heads, right?
Right, exactly.
I am just throwing it out there. If you ever need anybody, you've seen I will drive to great lengths to be a part of this crap. Like I will show up
Awesome.
in fucking Alaska next time. All right.
Okay.
And
All right.
and I'll be a hunter or if it doesn't work out, look at no hard feelings. I hate to put you on the spot like this.
No, I
but
love it.
I'm making my pitch. I will audition. I will do whatever you need me to do. I can send you a sizzle reel, some of my finer moments. If you need me to, put on a costume and act and send you pictures, I could do that. I just saw that you guys were doing that. And I'm like, oh, how much fun would that be? Like, who are these people dressing up like pilgrims, like reenacting this shit? Like, how do I get that? Like,
I mean, Pato did create Space Werewolf, so
I know. I see that. I'm on the page now. I'm seeing Space Werewolves. I'm seeing that you were a voice of Burt Munson in Blood Spray the musical.
Oh, that's actually available on Troma now. And I was one of the singers on that. So, because I'm a musician too, so but it's not me.
The best part, Heather. You want to hear something crazy? I've never paid Pato a dime.
I'm not asking for money. No, I do this for the love of it. What's funny about that musical is that it's my singing voice, but it's another actor. We got a better looking guy to do the role.
That's funny.
It's just me singing and doing the music because I'm a better, but that doesn't mean you can still put me in front of the camera. I will not break it.
Right. Yeah.
Just in that specific instance, we had a better looking guy who's now actually doing theater in London. So we made the right call.
Wow.
He was destined for success, but he just couldn't sing for shit.
As long as there's no singing, he's all right.
No, that's the thing. I can't sing. If it's Small Town Monsters ever does a musical, then you really need to double down and involve me.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, for the meantime, if you need and then the hunter looked over and saw something, I could be the hunter or I could be the something. See, that's the other thing too, is you've seen me before. I'm a big motherfucker, Heather Moser. I'm the kind of guy, Kane Hodder looks like me. Like, I'm the kind of dude that you put in a mask and a jumpsuit and have slowly walk behind somebody saying too quick, right? Like, I can do the guy in the suit stuff too, and I've done that. If you look at one of my earliest credits, The Killer in Yellow, I was, besides being the writer and director, I was also the Killer in Yellow.
Yeah,
because I'm terrifying in a mask.
Just don't put him in a role where he has to say Chillicothe.
Chillicothe, right? Because I'll say it the right way, and it'll break everyone's mind.
If we put you in a mask, I'll have to not be on set. I still can't do masks.
That's true.
I know who's under him.
Well, this is if you need someone in a gorilla suit. I actually have my own gorilla suit too.
Bring his own gorilla suit. He does have a couple of costumes. Yeah, he's got the frog head. You've got the frog head, so
right. I got a garage full of props, and yes, I have katanas.
Anyway, that wasn't really a question.
How many swap meet katanas do you have? I have several.
No, this is good to know, because I don't know the next time that we're going to do anything with the little vignettes like that, but we did Jersey Devil had a similar situation, and I had to find people to act in that as well.
Pato could have been your mother leads. I mean,
I
would have flown into Newark. On the back of the Mothman.
And give birth to a demon baby.
Yeah,
right.
That would have been great. Yeah,
that does sound like that wouldn't even be acting. If I have one more fucking kid, I swear,
Perfect.
I probably said that shit before.
Let this one be the devil. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. That's making connections here on the
That's
Wednesday
right.
It's all about networking.
That's
how we do it.
Did you have any questions about the Bell Witch or about Heather?
No. I watched the documentary. It was very informative. You guys did a great job.
Thanks. Thank you.
The whole time I was like, I wish I was in this fucking thing. This would have been great. If I could have made one of those like grammar school pilgrim hats with the belt buckle.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Have you at the booth? Everybody's like, "That's the Bell Witch guy," or whatever vignette you do. That could be a thing.
That's the Bell Witch guy. I like it.
I'm pitching myself as the truck driver that spots a UFO.
Okay.
You do with that what you will. That's my. I mean, you guys. Okay. I ain't trying to tell you how to. This is your barbecue. I'm just saying. Truck driver that spots a UFO. That would be a good one.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Noted.
Well, Heather, where do you want people to find you or pay attention to your stuff, or what do you got going on there?
So if you want to follow me, you can go. Instagram's probably the best place. At Pagan Historian, is my handle. Or you can, if you have a story or something that you want to share, you can send it to heather@smalltownmonsters.com. Follow Small Town Monsters on all socials, and you'll see that aspect of things. And yeah, so that's it. Small Town Monsters for bigger things, and then individualized things, Pagan Historian for me.
Yep. And Heather is still taking. She still runs the STM publishing, and she is still taking the erotica submissions from last time. So.
Dude, we completely forgot to talk about that.
Yeah. Right.
Me, you, and Mothman 46. No, because that all came up at the table.
Right, it did. Yes.
Oh my God. And last week we had the NASA guy on that used to write for Literotica.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dude, the synchronicity. You know what? I've never. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if Goatman shows up at this point.
You beat me to it.
Goatman's showing up.
It's Goatman erotica that somebody submits.
Hooves of pleasure. His cloven feet bit into her shoulders or something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Well, now there won't be any surprise.
Listen to that groan.
on Literotica next, and it's Goatman. We'll know who wrote it.
Oh, I put my name on everything. No. I'm too much of a narcissist for that. I don't use pen names. I can't get recognition for the shit that's under my name. Why are you gonna fucking? All right.
Well, okay. Anyway, in all seriousness, guys, go. Follow Heather. She's good at what she does, obviously, and yeah, of course. And you're not wasting your time at all by following her and just everybody individually that works with just that whole group, just the whole Small Town Monsters group. They all do their own stuff, and it's great. Definitely check them all out. But with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.